replace them.
There always need to be experienced people on the road.
From truckies to lawyers, artificial intelligence is coming.
Oh, wow.
Actually, it's already here.
I didn't realise that it would just be able to tell you, hey, here's the exact answer to your question.
We'll challenge your thinking about AI.
Same category, 1600.
AI is going to become like electricity. Automation isn't going to affect some workers, it's going to affect every worker.
And we let the generation most affected take on the experts.
I think that the younger generations probably have a better idea of where things are going than the older generations.
Tonight, we'll help you get ready for the AI race. Australian truckies often work up to 72 hours a week and are now driving bigger rigs to try to make ends meet.
I've seen a lot of people go backwards out of this industry, and I've seen a lot of pressures it's caused on their family life, especially when you're paying the rig off.
Now a new and unexpected threat to Frank and other truck drivers is coming on fast. Last year, this driverless truck in the US became the first to make an interstate delivery. It travelled nearly 200 kilometres on the open road with no one at the wheel. No human, that is. The idea of robot vehicles on the open road seemed ludicrous to most people just 5 years ago. Now just about every major auto and tech company is developing them. So what changed? An explosion in artificial intelligence.
There's lots of AI already in our lives. You can already see it on your smartphone. Every time you use Siri, every time you ask Alexa a question, every time you actually use your satellite navigation, you're using one of these algorithms, you're using some AI that's recognizing your speech, answering questions, giving you search results, recommending books for you to buy on Amazon. They're the beginnings of AI everywhere in our lives. We don't think about electricity. Electricity powers our planet. It powers pretty much everything we do. It's going to be that you walk into a room and you say, room, lights on. You sit in your car and you say, take me home.
A driverless car is essentially a robot. It has a computer that takes input from its sensors and produces an output. The main sensors are radar, which can be found in adaptive cruise control, ultrasonic sensors, and then there's cameras that collect images. And this data is used to control the car, to slow the car down, to accelerate the car, to turn the wheels.
There's been an explosion in AI now because of the convergence of four exponentials. The first exponential is Moore's law, the fact that every 2 years we have a doubling in computing performance. The second exponential is that every 2 years we'll have a doubling of the amount of data that we have, because these machine learning algorithms are very hungry for data. The third exponential is that, well, we've been working on AI for 50 years or so now, and our algorithms are starting to get better. And then the fourth exponential, which is over the last few years, we've had a doubling every 2 years of the amount of funding going into AI. We now have the compute power, we now have the data, we now have the algorithms, and we now have a lot of people working on the problems.
It could be you just jump into the car, you assume the car knows where you need to go because it has access to your calendar, your diary, where you're meant to be. And if you did not want the car to go where your calendar says you ought to be, then you need to tell the car, oh, and by the way, don't take me to the meeting that's in my calendar, take me to the beach.
But Frank Black won't have a bar of it.
I think it's crazy stuff. You've got glitches in computers now. The banks are having glitches with their ATMs, and emails are having glitches. Who's to say this is going to be perfect? And this is a lot more dangerous if there's a computer glitch. There always need to be experienced people on the road, not machines.
Frank is going to explain why he believes robots can never match human drivers.
Okay then, let's do it.
But Frank is off to a rocky start. Driverless trucks in Rio Tinto mines in West Australia show productivity gains of 15%. Frank needs to brake every 5 hours and rest every 12. Oh, and he needs to eat, and he expects to be paid for his work. Robots don't need a salary. Trials also indicate that driverless vehicles save up to 15% on fuel and emissions, especially when driving very close together in a formation called platooning. And at first glance, driverless technology could dramatically reduce road accidents because it's estimated that 90% of accidents are due to human error, such as fatigue or loss of concentration. Robots don't get tired. But hang on, Frank's not done. He's about to launch a comeback using 30 years of driving experience.
If there's something, say like a group of kids playing with a ball on the side of the road, we can see that ball starting to bounce towards the road. We anticipate that there could be a strong possibility that that child will run out on the road, you know, after that ball. I can't see how a computer can anticipate that for a start, and even if it did, then what sort of reaction would it take? Would it say swerve to the left, swerve to the right? Will it just brake and bring the vehicle to a stop? What about if it can't stop in time?
In fact, right now, a self-driving vehicle can only react according to its program. Anything unprogrammed can create problems, like when this Tesla drove into a roadworks barrier after the human driver failed to take back control. And what if some of the sensors fail?
What happens if something gets on the lens? The vehicle doesn't know where it's going.
It's true. Currently, heavy rain or fog or even unclear road signs can bamboozle driverless technology. And then there's the most unpredictable element of all, human drivers.
Stupidity always finds new forms. Quite often you see things you've never seen before.
That's why there are no plans to trial driverless trucks in complex urban settings right now. They'll initially be limited to predictable multi-lane highways. You also still need a human right now to load and unload a truck. And a robot truck won't help change your tyre.
If someone's in trouble on the road, we usually find the truck will pull over and make sure they're all right.
Finally, there are road rules. Australia requires human hands on the steering wheel at all times, in every state and territory. Hey Frank, you won the race.
One for the human beings.
But how long can human drivers stay on top? Nearly 400,000 Australians earn their living from driving, even more when you add part-time drivers. But the race is on to deliver the first version of a fully autonomous vehicle in just 4 years. And it might not be hype, because AI is getting much better, much faster every year, with a version of AI called machine learning.
Machine learning is the little part of AI that's focused on teaching programs to learn. If you think about how we got to be intelligent, we started out not knowing very much when we were born, and most of what we got is from learning. And so we write programs that learn to improve themselves. And we, at the moment, lots of data, and they get better and better. And in many cases, but certainly for narrow focus domains, we can often actually exceed human level performance.
You too.
when AlphaGo beat Lisa Doll in last year, one of the best Go players on the planet. That was a landmark moment.
So we've always used games as benchmarks, both between humans and machines. And a quarter century ago, chess fell to the computers. And at that time, people thought, well, Go isn't going to be like that. Because in Go, there's so many more possible moves. And the best Go players weren't working by trying all possibilities ahead. Working on kind of the gestalt of what it looked like and working on intuition. And we didn't have any idea of how to instill that type of intuition into a computer. But what happened is we've got some recent techniques with deep learning where we're able to do things like understand photos, understand speech, and so on. And people said, maybe this will be the key to getting that type of intuition. So first, it started by practicing on every game that a master had ever played. You feed them all in, and it practices on that. The key was to get AlphaGo good enough from training it on past games by humans so that it could then start playing itself and improving itself. And one thing that's very interesting is that the amount of time it took, the total number of person years invested, is a tenth or less than the amount of time it took to do for IBM to do the chess playing.
So the rate of learning is going to be exponential, something that we as humans are not used to seeing. We have to learn things painfully ourselves, and the computers are going to learn on a planet-wide scale, not on an individual level. There is this interesting idea that the intelligence will just suddenly explode and take us to what's called the singularity, where machines now improve themselves almost without end. There are lots of reasons to suppose that maybe that might not happen, but if it does happen, most of my colleagues think it's about 50 years away, maybe even 100.
I'm not convinced that how important intelligence is, right? So I think that there's lots of different attributes, and intelligence is only one of them. And there certainly are tasks that having a lot of intelligence would help, and being able to compute quickly would help. So if I want to trade stocks, then having a computer that's smarter than anybody else is going to give me a definite advantage. But I think if I wanted to solve the Middle East crisis, I don't think it's not being solved because nobody's smart enough.
But AI experts believe robot cars will improve so much that humans will eventually be banned from driving. Big roadblocks remain, not the least of which is public acceptance. As we found out after inviting professional drivers to meet two robot car experts.
Straight away, the first thing has to be safety. You definitely have to have safety paramount, and obviously efficiency.
So the big question, when is it going to happen?
In the next 5 to 10 years, we will see highly autonomous vehicles on the road. If you want to drive from Sydney to Canberra, you drive to the freeway, activate autopilot or whatever it will be called at the time, and by the time you arrive in Canberra, the car asks you to take back control. There are predictions that in 20 years' time, 50% of the new vehicles will actually be completely driverless.
What makes us think that these computers in these vehicles are going to be foolproof?
Well, we were able to send, rockets to the moon, and I think that there are ways of doing it, and you can have backup systems, and you have backups for your backups, and. But I agree, reliability is kind of a big question mark.
But we're not talking about a phone call dropping out or an email shutting down. We're talking about a 60-tonne vehicle in traffic that's going to kill people. There will be deaths if it makes a mistake.
I think we need to accept that there will still be accidents, and a machine can make a mistake, can shut down, can fail. And if we reduce accidents by, say, 90%, there will still be 10% of the current accidents will still occur on the network.
How can you say there's going to be 90%? How do you work that out?
90% is because 90% of the accidents are because of human error. And the idea is if we take the human out, we could potentially reduce it by 90%. Has any of you ever driven a car available on the market today with all this technology, autopilot and everything in there? It's absolutely unbelievable how safe and comfortable you feel.
I think people will ultimately accept this technology because we will be going in steps.
I would say, for me as an Uber driver, we're providing a passenger service, and those passengers, when they go to the airport, a lot of luggage. If it's an elderly passenger, they need help to get into the car, they need help getting out of the car. The human factor needs to be there.
I would argue that you can offer a much better service if you're not also driving. So the car's taking care of the journey, and you're taking care of the customer and improving the customer experience. And I think that there's a lot of scope for improvement in taxi and Uber customer experience.
You could offer tax advice, you could offer financial advice. It's unlimited.
Then we go back though, we're not fully driverless vehicles anymore. We've still got a babysitter there and a human being to look after the car. So what are we gaining with the driverless technology?
Well, the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but it's...
Were you trying to reduce costs by not having a driver in the vehicle?
Well, it depends on what people are paying for, okay? And if you're in business, you are trying to get as many customers as possible. And if your competitor has autonomous vehicle and is offering, daycare services or looking after disabled, then you probably won't be in business very long if they're able to provide a much better customer experience.
For my personal views, I like to drive my car, not just to see. I want to enjoy driving.
Well, I think in 50 years there'll be special places for people with vintage cars that they can go out and drive around.
You won't be able to go for a Sunday driving our vintage car because these autonomous vehicles have got our roads.
I mean, in the future when all the cars are autonomous, we won't need traffic lights, okay? Because the cars will just negotiate between themselves when they come to intersections, roundabouts.
Can I ask you a question? If we would do a trial with highly automated platooning of big road trains, would you like to be involved?
So I'd be involved, yeah. Yeah, why not?
Convince Frank, yeah. If you can convince Frank, you can convince anybody, right?
You want to come out with us, and I bet Frank's the same as well. If you want to come for a drive in the truck and see exactly what it's like and the little issues that would never have been thought of, I mean, my door's always open. You're more than welcome to come with me.
Oh, definitely. I think it's
time for a road trip.
But drivers aren't the only ones trying to find their way into the AI future. Across town, it's after-work drinks for a group of young and aspiring professionals. Most have at least one university degree or are studying for one. Like Christine Maybaum.
I think as law students we know now that it's pretty tough even to just get your foot in the door. I think that at the end of the day the employment rate for grads is still pretty high.
Tertiary degrees usually shield against technological upheaval, but this time AI will automate not just more physical tasks, but thinking ones. Waiting upstairs for Christine is a new artificial intelligence application, one that could impact the research typically done by paralegals. We invited her to compete against it in front of her peers. Adelaide tax lawyer Adrian Cartland came up with the idea for the AI called Alira.
I am here with Alira, the artificially intelligent legal information research assistant, and you're going to see if you can beat her. So what we've got here is a tax question.
Adrian explains to Christine what sounds like a complicated corporate tax question.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Very familiar? All right, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, guys, ready, set, go.
Here we have the answer.
So you've got the answer?
We're done.
That's 30 seconds. Christine, where are you up to with the search?
I'm at section 44 of the Income Tax Assessment Act. Maybe it has the answer. I haven't looked through it yet.
Well, you're in the right act. So do you want to keep going, or do you want to give some more time?
I can keep going for a little bit, yeah? Sure.
No pressure, Christine, we're at a minute.
Okay. Ooh, might need an hour for this one.
This is, really complex tax law. Like, I've given you a hard question. You were in the Income Tax Assessment Act, you were just doing your research. Well, what's your process?
Normally what I would do is probably try to find the legislation first, and then I'll probably look at any commentary on the issue.
Yep.
Find specific keywords. So, for example, consolidated group and assessable income are obviously there.
That's a pretty standard way. That's what I would approach. If you put this whole thing into a keyword search, it's going to break down. Keyword search will break down after about 4, 5, 7 words, whereas this is, 300 or 400 words. So all I've done is I've entered in the question here, copied and pasted it, I've clicked on submit, and she's read literally through millions of cases as soon as I pressed search. And then she's come through and she said, here is the answers. She's highlighted in there what she thinks is the answer.
Yeah, wow. Even down to the fact that it can answer those very specific questions. I didn't realise that it would just be able to tell you, hey, here's the exact answer to your question. It's awesome. I think obviously for paralegals, I think it's particularly scary because we're already in such a competitive market.
Adrian Cartland believes AI could blow up lawyers' monopoly on basic legal know-how, and he has an astonishing example of that.
My girlfriend is a speech pathologist who has no idea about law, and she used Alira to pass the Adelaide University tax law.
Oh wow.
Automation is moving up in the world. Here's Claire, a financial planner. It's estimated that 15% of an average financial planner's time is spent on tasks that can be done by AI.
What kind of things do you see it ultimately taking over?
I would say that everything except talking to your clients.
Here's Simon. He used to be a secondary school teacher. 1/5 of that job can be done by AI. Simon's now become a university lecturer, which is less vulnerable.
I think there's huge potential for AI and other educational technologies. Obviously, it's a little bit worrying if we're talking about making a bunch of people redundant.
And did I mention journalists?
I hope you enjoyed tonight's program.
The percentage figures were calculated by economist Andrew Charlton and his team after drilling into Australian workforce statistics.
For the first time, we broke the Australian economy down into 20 billion hours of work. And we asked, what does every Australian do with their day, and how will what they do in their job change over the next 15 years?
We've built an online interactive tool now on the ABC's website, so you can check how much time in your job is spent on tasks that could be done by AI.
I think the biggest misconception is that everyone talks about automation as destroying jobs. The reality is that automation changes every job. It's not so much about what jobs will we do, but how will we do our jobs. Because automation isn't going to affect some workers, it's going to affect every worker.
But if there's less to do at work, that's got to mean less work or less pay or both, doesn't it?
If Australia embraces automation, there is a $2.1 trillion opportunity for us over the next 15 years. But here's the thing, you only get that opportunity if we do two things. Firstly, if we manage the transition. and we ensure all of that time that is lost to machines in the Australian workplace is redeployed and people are found new jobs and new tasks. And condition number 2 is that we embrace automation and bring it into our workplaces and take advantage of the benefits of technology and productivity.
But Australia's not doing well at either.
Right now, Australia's lagging. 1 in 10 of Australian companies is embracing automation, and that is roughly half the rate of some of our global peers. Australia hasn't been very good historically at transitioning workers affected by big technology shifts. Now, over the last 25 years, 1 in 10 unskilled men who lost their job never worked again. Today, 4 in 10 unskilled men don't participate in the labour market.
We asked a group of young lawyers and legal students how they felt about embracing AI. The contrasts were stark.
I often get asked, oh, do you feel threatened? Absolutely not. I'm confident and I'm excited about opportunities that AI presents. I think the real focus will be on not only upskilling, but reskilling and about diversifying your skill set.
I think for me, I still have an underlying concern about how much of the work is going to be taken away from someone who's, still learning the law and just wants a job part-time where they can sort of help with some of those less, judgment-based, high-level tasks.
How much software is there out there, AI, for legal firms at the moment?
There's quite a lot. There's often a few competing in the same space. So there's a few that my law firm has trialled in, for example, due diligence, which are great at identifying certain clauses. So rather than the lawyer sitting there trying to find an assignment or a change of control clause, it will pull that out.
How much time do you think using the AI cuts down on that kind of just crunching lots of documents, lots of numbers?
Immensely, I would say potentially up to about 20% of our time in terms of going through and locating those clauses or pulling them out, extracting them, which of course delivers way better value for our clients, which is great.
Well, I think the first reaction was obviously very worried, I suppose. You just see the way that this, burns through these sorts of banal tasks that we'd be, doing at an entry-level job. And yeah, it's quite an intuitive response, I suppose, that we're just a bit worried.
And also it was so easy, it was just copy and paste. And so it means that anyone could do it really. So you don't need the sort of specialised skills that are getting taught to us in our law degrees. It's pretty much just a press a button job.
AI is like Tony Stark's Iron Man suit. It takes someone and makes them, into Superman, makes them fantastic. And so you could suddenly be doing things that are 10 times above your level and providing that, at much cheaper than anyone else could do it. Lawyers the legal work of the future might be done by social workers, psychiatrists, conveyancers, tax agents, accountants. They have that personal skill set that lawyers sometimes lack.
Yeah, I also wonder just how much law schools should be teaching us about, technology and new ways of, working in legal workforce, because a lot of what you guys are saying, I've heard for the first time.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that statement. This is the first time I've heard the bulk of this, especially hearing that there is already existing a lot of AI.
Our research shows that right now, up to 60% of young Australians currently in education are studying for jobs that are highly likely to be automated over the next 30 years.
It's difficult to know what will be hit hardest first. But jobs that help young people make ends meet are among the most at risk, like hospitality workers.
So the figure that they've given us is 58% could be done by versions of AI. How does that make you feel?
Very, very frustrated. That is really scary. I don't know what other job I could do whilst, studying or that sort of thing, or as a fallback career. It's what all of my friends have done. It's what I've done. It sort of just helps you survive and, pay for the food that you need to eat each week.
It may take a while to be cost effective, But robots can now help take orders, flip burgers, make coffee and deliver food.
Young people will be the most affected by these changes because the types of roles that young people take are precisely the type of entry-level task that can be most easily done by machines and artificial intelligence.
But here this evening, there's at least one young student who's a little more confident about the future.
So Annie, how much of your job as a doctor do you imagine that AI could do pretty much now?
Now? Not much, maybe 5–10%, yeah.
But artificial intelligence is also moving into healthcare.
Watson? What is Sauron? Sauron is... Watson? What is leg? Yes. Watson? What is executor? Right. Watson? What is shoe? You are right. Same category, 1600. Answer.
So in the earliest days of artificial intelligence and machine learning, it was all around teaching computers to play games.
Yes. Watson? What is narcolepsy?
But today, with those machine learning algorithms, we're teaching those algorithms how to learn the language of medicine.
We invited Annie Rue to hear about IBM research in cancer treatment using its AI supercomputer Watson.
Today I'm going to take you through a demonstration of Watson for Oncology. This is a product that brings together a multitude of disparate data sources and is able to learn and reason and generate treatment recommendations. This patient is a 62-year-old patient that's being diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's presenting to this clinician. So the clinician has now entered this note in, and Watson has read and understood that note. Watson can read natural language, and when I attach this final bit of information,